I was kind of laughing to myself and my colleagues a couple of minutes ago because I feel like I did a million of these last year, but I haven't done one in a few months, and I feel like I somehow have forgotten to do it or something. So hopefully this goes okay. Again, thanks for being here. Let's see, just a quick check-in. I hope everyone's doing okay. And I always have one, I think I always try to do one sort of random personal oversharing of information. So I'll start with that. So let's see, this summer, I saw some family, my sisters that I haven't seen in over a year. I also saw a couple friends. Most of this is pandemic related that I have not seen. Some of these friends I haven't seen in 2 years. And pretty much the consistent thing that every single person commented upon was how absolutely gray my hair has gotten. So that's my personal overshare. I haven't been noticing it, but I guess 2020, 2021 has taken its toll on this school superintendent. So anyway, that is my one quick little overshare. And we are, if you watched some of our Zooms last year, we were using a slightly different format. This is a Zoom webinar mode. So even though the chat, I think, could be useful in some ways, last year the chat sometimes got just sort of a little bit sideways, and it made it hard for me to keep up with. So if you have what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to, I know we're all busy, I'm going to try to get through the slides. I sent them out ahead of time, but to get through the slides, maybe add a little bit of our thinking on some of these and a little bit of background. And then during this whole thing, you can put questions in the Q&A. And then when I am done, I think we only have like 10 slides. When I'm done, I will go back to the Q&A and I will do my best to answer them. Probably it's pretty clear that there's some I can answer tonight and probably some questions I can't. All right, fair enough. So if I can't answer some questions tonight, I will do my best in the coming weeks to do it. So let's hit that first slide, please. And thanks to my co-hosts tonight, Anne-Marie Corderoni and Mike Keeley, our Director of Technology, for helping me out. All right, our goals tonight is just to discuss our initial plans for this school year in regards to COVID-19 and the CDC guidance, to try to answer questions like I said. This, you probably are aware, is just a request for patience. New York has been an interesting state to do my profession in this summer because no one appears to want to give us guidance. So we have been requested to follow the CDC guidance. So that's what we're doing. We did just get some State Department guidance late this afternoon. I did a very quick read. It looks like it's essentially CDC, but I'll take a closer look tomorrow. And then, of course, I will try to keep any comments that veer into the political sphere just focused on schools and keep it nonpartisan. But we have a new governor coming in it looks like a week and a half, so maybe there'll be some changes with that. Who knows? All right. But most importantly of all, beyond all this stuff that we're going to talk about, which we take very, very seriously, we are so excited. I am personally so excited about this school year to just have a strong in-person program and to have an amazing year. So anyway, all right, next slide, please. All right, so we are going to talk about some different COVID mitigation measures that the CDC recommends. So we'll get a little bit in detail about each of these: indoor masking, trying to emphasize and encourage vaccinations, ventilation, health screenings, physical distancing, and COVID-19 testing. And as you can see, some of those things are voluntary, but we'll get a little bit more in depth on each of those. Next slide. All right, so this year we are going to follow, as best we can, the CDC guidance for the 21-22 school year. We were advised by the New York Department of Health a few weeks ago in a 2-sentence letter that they sent out. So that one was pretty quick to read, and it said that they were not issuing guidance, but that they advised school districts to follow the CDC. We've been getting little quick updates from the New York State Education Department telling us to do the same thing. They came out with longer guidance this afternoon, which also says the same thing, follow the CDC. So that we've been trying to plan. It seems like this is where this whole thing was headed, about following the CDC. So that's what we've been working on this summer. And again, I'll say this probably over and over. Just like we did last year, we take this stuff very, very seriously. As many of you know, along with being a superintendent of the district, I'm also a parent in the district, and it's just it's something that we will try to just relentlessly focus on this entire year. So anyway, just to sort of jump right into it, I think the thing that was on various people's minds, and it seems like it's become kind of a national conversation, is about universal masking. So we will be beginning the school year with universal masking for all of our staff and students, regardless of vaccination status. I say for the foreseeable future. I say that, I'll get into that, I guess, in a second, but we will be starting the year with universal masking. So I'll get a little bit more depth. And also, I just really do want to say the overarching focus from the federal government, the state government, the county, to our school board here in Beacon, to our staff, is an overarching focus on in-person instruction for all of our students this year. All right, next slide. All right, so we're going to get a little bit more in depth into masking. Why are we starting the year with universal masking for all staff and students? So first of all, based on community transmission, which the Dutchess County has a great COVID dashboard that I look at, quite honestly, I look at a couple of times a day. And I also have the little app on my phone that I look at our data, and I also now look at the CDC pretty much on a daily basis. And so all of that data recommends that we have a school mask mandate or universal masking for school districts in Dutchess County. It is a local decision, but this is our plan for Beacon. I'm kind of assuming, I thought it was important for us to get out with this information pretty early instead of just sort of waiting, because I know it's on people's minds. That's the parent part that I understand. So anyway, it seems like many of the districts in the area are probably headed in this direction as well. And it also seems like our governor-to-be, Governor Hochul, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, because I just have been reading it and I haven't watched anything recently, but she, I guess, indicated that there might be some sort of statewide school mask mandate coming, but we're going to go ahead and implement that in Beacon. And if they want to line that guidance up with us, that's great. All right. So more reasons why there is, if you look at the CDC guidance that for schools that was put out on, I want to say July 8th, they do have a carve out for contact tracing and quarantining. And if a student is more than 3 feet away from someone who does have COVID, if they're wearing a mask, it most likely means that they'll be exempt from quarantining for the CDC. We're still working on some of the more exacting details about that with our local county health department, but it is in the CDC guidance, and I think it's a great reason to cut down on the number of quarantines we have. We experienced some quarantining in my family last year, and it's long, and hopefully this can cut down on that a little bit. Another reason is that I say 4 to 11. I really should have said 5 to 11 because I think that's the only thing under consideration right now for the vaccine. But all of those students between ages 5 and 11 have not had access to the vaccine yet. Masking also helps allow all of our staff and students to return to school. Universal masking does. And just a quick note about masks, they will not be required to be worn outside of school, like playground, recess. A lot of PE classes were outside. I know we're doing some, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but hopefully a lot of lunches outside or as much as possible. So masks will not be required, but also students will be given frequent mask breaks. I think we did a nice job of that last year. So we're used to that. We will evaluate this policy, however, throughout this school year. So things are a little bit in flux. Albany's been really confusing this year, so it might be coming from them at some point in the next few weeks. I'm not totally sure, but we will evaluate this policy if it still is our decision throughout the year. I think some of the things that I just read off would probably influence our view on it later, like community transmission data, also whether our younger students have had access to a vaccine. I think some of those things may play a role in future mask policies for the school year. All right, okay, next slide, please. All right, vaccines. They are, as everyone knows, they are not mandatory for students. They're only approved for 12 and up, and they're not mandatory for staff. There is a kind of a growing, what I would kind of consider a national debate about vaccine requirements for work. I'm not aware of any New York school district that has one right now. I know I heard that California, I haven't read this super closely. It just sort of was a news alert on my phone, but California is going to do some sort of testing or a vaccination requirement for people who work in schools, public schools. I personally, this is just my personal view, I would welcome some sort of testing or vaccination mandate from New York as well. I have no idea if they will do that. We will keep working on holding vaccination clinics, especially focusing on our students. If it seems feasible, it's very easy to get a vaccine now, in terms of just going to a local pharmacy. There's plenty of them. But if we feel like we had a really successful clinic last spring, if we feel like doing another clinic would really help, we will certainly do it. We can work with the county health department or the person we worked with the last time. And just lastly, please consider, if your child is eligible, please consider getting vaccinated, or you yourself. Just a personal plug there. All right, next slide. All right, ventilation. We actually had some of this in place at the beginning of last year. Then we had more of it in place when we brought more kids back, or larger class sizes in the spring. And so these things are still in place and working well in the district. So our classrooms with air handlers, I'll say air handlers. Sorry, sometimes I struggle with the exact vocabulary the things are called, but those have MERV 13 filters in them. And then in the spring, when we brought more students back, we also purchased portable HEPA filters for every single classroom in the district. Both of these are very high quality air filtration tools. At some point, probably, down the road, a year or two from now, we may back our MERV 13s to a lower MERV rating, just because that high rating can sometimes burn out the units that we have. But, we're kind of monitoring that, but we still have those in place, and we have the HEPAs in every classroom. We're proud of this emphasis. Everything I read, and I've done a lot of reading on this particular topic, is they can make a really, really big impact on the air quality and really reduce any sort of aerosol transmission in a classroom. So we're proud to say we have them in all of our classrooms. Next slide. All right, health screening. Health screening is, I think people use the word screening a little bit differently, but we're just going to talk about the health screener, the text that you would get, or the text and email. It appears that it's not a requirement anymore from my reading of everything, but we have decided to keep doing that. And we're actually probably going to switch the provider for that and get one that works a little bit better for us than the one last year. So it may look a little bit different. We're going to be working on that in the next few weeks. But we are going to keep using that. It is just, and we will be reminding folks of this like over and over again this school year, but the importance of keeping your child home, or you yourself, if you're an employee, if you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, and just at least getting checked out and making sure you don't have it. The importance of staying home is it's probably the most important thing that we can do, along with all the other things we're talking about, but it's just extremely important. So we will keep doing that, although it appears that it is not a requirement. One thing we are going to be discontinuing is the use of temperature screening. We were actually probably one of the very few districts that did it all year. We were one of the few districts that actually even started the year doing it. We kept at it. We did it the entire year. My praise to our staff for just jumping in and doing that. But it's pretty much, I think, a fairly widely held medical opinion that it's not the best way. It's not the best allocation of our resources, and it's not the most effective way to sort of identify symptomatic folks. So we are going to discontinue that. So that is a change. Next slide, please. All right, distancing. So last year, distancing recommendations were a lot different. And that was probably the biggest reason for our being in the hybrid model for as long as we were. But the CDC, I think, really just looking at schools across the country and how little, transmission there were in schools that were following all these things like masking and whatnot, that they are really going with 3 feet. And I should add that they say if at times it needs to be below 3 feet, that you make sure you're using some other layered mitigation strategies. So those layered mitigation strategies would be some of the things I just described, like high quality air filtration in a classroom, and obviously masking, and things like doing a health screener to try to keep people home who aren't feeling well. That being said, we anticipate, with the way our classrooms are being laid out as we speak, and when we have staff back to further organize classrooms, that we will be able to achieve 3 feet distancing. As you probably know, we've been able to achieve pretty small class sizes pretty much across the board in our district for the last several years, something we're proud of, and it's really helped with all this. So what about breakfast and lunch? Breakfast, there are less people obviously that eat breakfast, but all of our students eat lunch. So this one, we are kind of taking a school by school strategy with this, just because each school is laid out differently and they have different challenges with kind of laying out the cafeteria. So sorry for that. I had a little brain lapse there. So I've read the CDC guidelines many times now, and they don't really specifically say what the distancing should be. So we are just trying to maximize as much distance as we can during these spaces. If we get some guidance that's more specific, we obviously will follow it. We don't have that right now. So it's going to look different in each school, and the principals are kind of working on that, and they'll be sharing that information out as we get closer to the school year. But the high school last year, a lot of kids ate outside. We are going to continue doing that at the middle school. A lot of kids ate outside. They also did something where they did kind of like a split shift for lunch, where some kids would go outside, then come in for lunch. Some kids would start inside or get their lunch and then go outside for the recess break. Middle school is working on a schedule where they'll be able to continue that. And then at the elementary level, again, this is going to be somewhat school by school. There's going to be a little bit of eating in certain classrooms, using the cafeteria, trying to kind of realign elementary schedules, obviously, so there's not as many kids as in years past in the cafeteria. So we're working on a school by school plan. The reason why is if you've seen our buildings, the cafeteria sizes are pretty different. So it just makes sense to come up with some individualized plans per school for that. But we are really concentrating on that and working on that. Next slide, please. And then we have COVID-19 testing. We dabbled in this a little bit last year. We did a really successful round of rapid testing. And so there is a kind of a federal push in terms of funds, and they're doing it. My understanding is they're doing it through each state and also then through each county. So we are in some conversations with Dutchess County about this. So any sort of COVID testing would be voluntary, would need parent approval. But we are looking into doing it because it is another mitigation strategy that's recommended. So, it does, when we do it ourselves, it ties up a lot of our own staff. So if there are these funds to do it that are through the county, then this is my opinion, it would be great to have some outside resources help us do it, both from a people perspective and also through a funds perspective. So we're hoping to partner to help with this, and it's just another way to bring down the effect of the virus. All right, next slide, please. All right, so then this is something that, we did just get this guidance today. I did a very quick read of it because I had some other things. We get this thing at like 4 o'clock, and so I need to read it again tomorrow. So, but it appears that what I have is kind of right, and obviously this is one that still is something that's being worked on. So my understanding, and again, I'll do a closer reading of this, after tonight. But my understanding is our state education department is not requiring districts to provide remote education to students. So like I said at the beginning, the overarching emphasis from every single level of government and support that we have down to our local school board here is to prioritize in-person education. So I just do want to be clear with that. Like I said in the letter today, that didn't end up on one of the slides. We are not implementing a hybrid schedule this year. We are asking our teachers to focus on the students physically in front of them and not be sort of bifurcated, if you will, with students at home and students in person. And it's something that we've been talking a lot about with our teachers, and just in general, we think it's the best way to move forward. However, the state education department has asked every single district to be prepared to go over into remote if a school has to be closed for like a COVID exposure, or sometimes we had to close last year to finish contact tracing. So if we ever have to do that at a school, the state education department is asked to be prepared to flip right into remote. So we've already been talking with teachers about that. And after last year, I think they'll be very well, prepared to do that. So, again, we're not worried about that. We are, and this would be on a very, very limited basis, but we are exploring for students with a significant or serious medical condition that prevents them from attending in-person education this is possible because there needs to be some kind of work between districts, but BOCES might be offering a remote learning program for qualified students. So that's something that's still kind of in flux. And I don't want to sound, this is something where some of this delayed guidance has been a little frustrating for us all, but we are working hard on all of this. So we are also working on trying to create a process to identify that. But again, I do want to reiterate that the overall focus for us all is to do in-person school this year. Okay, so there will be a little bit more coming out about this as we learn more, but our main focus is on in-person. So next slide, please. So just some final thoughts, and I'll go a little bit beyond what we have here. I'll try not to ramble because I wanted to keep tonight fairly short, and then I'm going to dive into the Q&A. We will just continue with communication efforts. I thank all the folks who are logged in tonight and listening. I'm appreciative of the time you're giving us. So we will continue with emails and robocalls and Zoom town halls when it makes sense to do one. We really felt we wanted to get this information out as early as because we really want to do one this week. But just some other final thoughts. Again, I feel like last year, I would never claim perfection by any stretch, but I do feel last year we really put an enormous amount of effort into getting, even though it was hybrid, getting kids in the building right at the beginning of September, keeping things safe, working on communication. We will keep those communication efforts up when there is a case in a school. Last year a lot of it was via email. because we were just contacting like a handful of people that needed to quarantine. If it's a larger kind of situation, we would do a robocall for that, but we'll keep that communication up. And also, like if there is shifts in guidance or something like that, and again, New York is kind of a strange state for guidance this summer. It seems like other states are being clearer, but that being said, we'll be clear here. But if there is changes in guidance, we'll really try to come back together to explain all of this. I also want to take this opportunity. I probably should have done it at the front end, but just to thank all of our staff last year. Well, I have a few people to thank. I always take, I have some people listening, so thank our staff for coming in and making things happen last year in every which way that we did. It was a very, very challenging year, as I tried to joke at the beginning, put a lot of gray hairs on my head, I think, but it was worth it. And so just a huge shout out to our teachers, administrators, all of our support staff that made last year happen. And then all the thinking that's gone into getting ready for this year. Also, I just want to say, big thank you to our families for just what a year. I sometimes look at our schedules from last year, and they were, I think, right, even at the, especially at the beginning of the year, they were so confusing. And just to have a cleaner sort of look at it this year, it's such a relief in many ways. But just a thank you to parents for being so flexible. And then I also just want to say, I probably should have started with this. Sometimes I think I was a little nervous tonight because I haven't done one of these in a while, but I do really want to say how I understand how all of this stuff brings up a lot of different feelings. People are coming from a lot of different perspectives. The one thing I know we all have in common is we care about our kids, and I also know that this school year, much like last year, is anxiety provoking for staff, for families, for parents, and also for students. So we'll be spending time as an administrative team, and then when everybody comes back to really try to brainstorm ways to do really, as warm and gentle welcome back as we possibly can with our students, and also hopefully, we can also try to allay anxiety that people have as we get closer to the school year, if that's even possible, because I understand how hard it's been the last year and a half. So with that all said, I'm going to go into the Q&A here. Oops, sorry. All right. And I will try to read a lot of the questions if it makes sense to read them, and I will and if it doesn't make sense to read it out loud, I may try a different way to answer it, and we also will try to put a Q&A together as well. All right, why not make masks optional since the guidance is a recommendation and not a requirement? Yeah, I with that slide I had at the beginning, I tried to answer all the reasons, so I'm just going to review those really quickly. It helps get all of our students back. A large chunk of our students have not had access to the vaccine yet. And based on the transmission rates, it is a strong recommendation from not only the CDC, but also local health people, including our district physician too. So it seems like the smart way, but we will evaluate all throughout the year. All right, next question. Will students wear masks outside? I forget when this was exactly, but I want to say May of last year, May or June, that the New York Department of Health lifted the outside mask requirement for schools, and we did follow suit with that. So no, students will not be required to wear masks outside. How frequent will the kids receive mask breaks? I think this varied a little bit. And this did vary a little bit, but I know teachers, especially at the elementary level, worked pretty hard to do this. All right. Next question. What is the percentage of teachers and staff vaccinated in our school district? Is there a way for parents to learn what their school's teacher staff vax rate is? I have really more of an estimate right now, a few reasons for that. Last spring, we were asked by the state to start collecting that data. And then, things have been a little choppy with the state, like I said, for a while now. And then like a day later, we were asked not to collect that. It looks like the state education department, again, I sort of was scanning this stuff because it just came out. The state education department, it looks like it's asking for this to be collected. We're already trying to work on a plan to collect the data. I don't know if we'd be able to break it out by school, but we're going to work on collecting that for sure. It is going to take us a little while to do it, but I understand the importance of that. It's not something I'm really neutral on. I probably need to say I'm a huge believer in vaccines and a big believer in this one. But that is something that we will work on for sure. All right. How will mask breaks be implemented? Some of that is a little bit teacher by teacher because it's maybe the way their rooms are set up or the grade level that they are. But I do know it's an emphasis that we will have because I know kids will need a break or breaks. Is the district considering regular testing of students, faculty, and staff during the school year? I'm assuming that is COVID testing, and we are. It is for students, just to be clear, it is a voluntary thing. There's different ways to do tests now, so we are trying to explore some different ways. We want to work, like I said, with an outside agency. I'd love for someone else to pick up the tab, but if that's not possible, we will look into doing it ourselves as a district. But that one is in flux a little bit. We do not have that firmly in place. The masks, will there be rules in place for mask compliance? Don't really have like a specific code of conduct thing. I think most districts, including us, we decide to leave that out of the code. I think last year, for the most part of the year, kids were really good with it. And we will really, really work hard on compliance with that with everyone. And so, yes. All right. Do I see any factors that might require vaccines for school employees? I mentioned earlier tonight, it looks like California's jumping into this as a state, and they're either requiring school employees to be vaccinated or to be regularly tested. This is probably more my personal opinion. I think that would be, if it came from the state, it would save a lot of time and effort if it came from the state. So I don't know if California is going to lead the way, and it might become a thing. I just don't know. But I think having some other governmental agencies involved could help. Do you know if CTI is going to require masks? I would prefer that Duchess Bosse's probably communicates this. I'm pretty certain that they are, though, but I'll leave it to them to do the final communication on that. Have there been any studies on the effects of masks on children? I know there's some initial studies about the effectiveness of masks, and they look like they're pretty effective. I don't know if this question, it might be referring to effects in terms of like a mask affecting a child negatively. I'm not aware of a study like that. New Zoom features are confusing. Can I see you or hear you? I cannot. We did change things a little bit. Some of those Zooms got a little crazy, and it was hard to kind of like mute everybody, and the chat also sometimes got a little bit out of control, not always in a bad way, but it was really hard for me to keep up with. So I can't see you and I can't hear you. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm not sure, but if you have a question, put it in the Q&A, and I'm just going to plow through. If this is super boring for you, feel free to log off at any point, but I'm going to try to go through all of these. All right. Will students and staff be told where or when they can travel on days the district is closed? I do not think there are really no travel restrictions. I know there's some like international travel things. I need to do a little research on that, but there's no domestic travel things like there used to be. So no, I really don't think there's going to be a lot of travel restrictions or having to answer questions about travel. That can always change. That comes from someone else. That always came from the New York Health Department. If my child's out sick, not due to the COVID virus, will regular note from a parent be sufficient? Yes. And I also, I have Anne-Marie Corderoni, who is my COVID coordinator. And if I'm wrong on any questions, I am most certain she will unmute herself and correct me. So I'm just putting that out there, Anne-Marie. All right. Next question. Will the students be able to share classroom materials? Yes. So we kind of met as we have a group of people, kind of representatives from all of our units, and we got together to discuss things. COVID is really not transmitted through surfaces. We're going to still keep our cleaning procedures in place. We had some pretty cool ones we used last year, and so anything that helps we'll do, but we are going to allow students to share things more. Is COVID testing mandatory or voluntary? And it is voluntary. It is voluntary. And would we consider using qualified school community volunteers to assist us? Perhaps. Maybe not. I know there's some HIPAA. There would be some HIPAA issues with that, so probably not. Although I appreciate the offer if that was one. Is it a full 5 days a week? Yes. So someone emailed me today, is elementary going back to the schedule of I guess 2 years ago? Yes, it is. So we're going to go back to our old start times for elementary. So, which is great in my humble opinion. All right. Just a comment here, children should not wear masks or get vaccinated. I have one here. Has there been an evaluation of the CO2 load and biological germ load imposed on children wearing masks versus protection from the virus? I'm not an expert on this. I've seen some things that it really doesn't impact, at least the part you're talking about. I'm not a medical person, so I'm going to get the words wrong. So I probably won't go deeper than that. But all the medical folks we've spoken with and all the advice we're getting from the experts says it's the safe way to start. What time will school start this year? We'll start at the old times. We're starting the return to normal for elementary school times. Full-time schedule for school year include pre-K students. It would include pre-K, although pre-K, a lot of our pre-K is half day, and so that part will still be half, but they will. You know what? If something's different with pre-K, I'm going to let someone else communicate that. I'm not 100% sure. All right, someone with a thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. Will middle schools be able to have a locker? Yes, we do anticipate that they will be able to have a locker. Why am I not requiring staff to be vaccinated? I'm seeing a lot of this. I completely understand the sentiment. I understand the concern. I'm not aware of any school district in the entire state of New York that is able to require a vaccination of staff right now. Any sort of requirement would be changing a term and condition of employment. All of our employees work under contracts. 99% of our employees are in different bargaining units. And so that's why I mentioned, I think if we were to start to go in those directions, I think things coming from the state level would make more sense. Will there be plexiglass dividers between students in classroom? For the most part, no, there will not be. That is really not in the guidance anymore. I think there might be some places where we still feel like they're needed, perhaps like perhaps like a music class, not sure, but for the most part, no. Singing and instrument playing recommendations are for BCSD. we'll work on that with our teachers and with the guidance. So we will figure that out. And someone just showing some appreciation. Thank you. Back to you. How do we plan on helping kindergartners transition to classes this year? I think the elementary principals are working on, so the question is about parents coming into the building. So last year we were like, everybody stay out and for good reason. And so this year we're going to be a little bit more open with that. We don't want like large crowds of people in our building, but like if it makes sense to do some orientation activities where parents are with a child. So I think that at the elementary level, we're working on some like drop off your supplies and the parent, if it makes sense. Again, this is still a work in progress, can possibly come see the learning space. But we're not we're not doing the everybody has to stay completely out. We would obviously ask that you wear a mask. What about sports? Sports, I know there's something in the guidance that we just got a little while ago, and I haven't been able to read super closely about sports, but it's pretty much all systems go with sports. But we will have to be really monitoring close contacts, and if someone does have COVID on a team, the contact tracing can be tricky and difficult, but we are planning to have all sports back on a normal schedule. Classes 5 days a week, yes. Elementary have a delayed start? No, it's going to be starting at the time that we started, the 8:45, I want to say. I should know this, I'm an elementary parent. Okay, we have not canceled high-risk sports for fall. I'm not aware of high-risk sports being canceled, so no, we have not done that. Will gym be outdoors? Yes, a lot of gym classes were outdoors, and a lot of gym classes were outdoors, and kids, because of at the end of the year, the outdoor mask requirement was lifted by the state. Why is COVID testing not mandatory? It's that's something that I think just in terms of, and again, I understand the feeling behind that question. But you would really I would really want parents to know that their child is being tested and given approval. How long are mask breaks? That one kind of depends on the age and the teacher. I think our teachers have gotten really good over the year with working that in and not having it sort of lose a lot of learning time. So I've seen some really masterful things done. Someone just making a comment, we need a code of conduct for this. I'm assuming they're regarding masks. So is there going to be remote Wednesday? No, I guess I'll stop repeating some of these. Is there a plan to catch kids up? We do. We did a lot of summer school. We had hundreds of students participate in some summer schedules. And we are working with our teachers and administrators to put together a plan for supporting students both at, this is going to look different, but K to 12. But we really want to provide some tutoring for students who need it. And we know the number is probably pretty high. And so we want to put that in place. We do have federal money, the American Rescue Act, to help support us with that. So we are trying to put that plan together. So great question. Do I know when bus schedules are going to be sent? I'm saying that out loud. Maybe someone will text that answer to me and then I can share. High school orientation for freshmen. We will also put that out hopefully in the coming days. We are working on that. Some thank yous. Thank you back. Thanks for being here. Any restrictions on fall sports? None that I know of right now. However, like I said before, a COVID positive case on a team can put a team on quarantine for a while. Bus schedules are still being worked on. We hope to get them out in the next 2 weeks. All right. Yes, we're going to be using lockers. Group work and activities be allowed this year. Yes, I think a common sense approach. Just another comment about the need for rules around mask wearing. We will certainly look into that. We will take that very seriously. We will not brush it off. Quarantine protocol for students and teachers in case of an exposure. So someone's asking about that. That one, what I'd like to do on that one is the CDC has their guidance, but Dutchess County is kind of working through it, and they are our lead authority for quarantining, even though we do most of the work. So what I'd like to do on all of that, we have these weekly meetings with them, and we're still kind of working on that. So I'd like to talk a little bit more, share more information about quarantining a little bit closer to the school year, because I know Dutchess County is trying to kind of develop their plan for that. I do anticipate with the new exempt part of the CDC guidance around wearing a mask that we will have less students quarantining. No, someone's asking about, are we going to be separating into cohorts? We will not be separating into cohorts this year. Wednesday is going to be a regular school day. We are not doing remote Wednesdays. What effect, if any, has the Delta variant had on our decisions? It seems like schools may be less safe with this variant. You know, I'm looking at my time. I will try to wrap this up in the next few minutes. That is a great question. At the risk of sounding strange, to put a lot of time into in meetings with this, in planning, in reading about it. It's certainly impacted our decision on it. It for sure made the universal masking seem pretty obvious. It's kind of an obvious decision, so that's one way it impacted us. And we also will keep monitoring things very, very closely. And if we need to make a change based on, this new iteration of the virus, we will. I am not exactly sure what I mean when I say that, but I know we've gotten pretty good at being flexible, but it is something that we're monitoring very closely. And we work with we have a new district physician this year, Dr. Rubenstein, but also Dutchess County folks we work with really closely. Distancing on buses. The main requirement for buses per CDC is for students to be wearing buses. Students can't wear a bus. Students to be wearing masks. Excuse me, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. If we don't know what the old times are, that is a really good question. So since it's been a really long time, we're going to put those old times back out. I think that's referring to the start times, and we will put those back out so everyone knows what those old times are, because it seems like a really long time ago. Students will need to wear masks on bus. Bus information is coming out in a couple of weeks. When do teacher assignments come out? At all levels, we're working on that. I know elementary, we're really trying to get the next week or two that sorted out. High school start time 7:30. Start time for kindergarten, and again, I sometimes I need things right in front of me. Elementary starts at 8:45, but we'll confirm that and send that out. And again, I'm embarrassed because I'm an elementary parent. I should know this. Will parents be permitted in the buildings this year? Yes, to a certain extent, yes. Another thank you back. Will students have to wear masks when participating in sports? That is a great question. Outdoor sports, no, because of the outdoor lifting of the mask requirement, but indoor, probably yes. We need to kind of sort through the state ed guidance that we just got. All right. Masks are required on buses. I'm getting a lot of questions about schedules and stuff, so we'll put a little update out, just sort of saying, here's when you can expect things. Like schedules and who your teacher is and all that kind of stuff. This is a good question. Will there be rugs in the classrooms? The rugs are coming back. Yay, rugs. So the rugs are coming back to the elementary school. So we're bringing a lot of that stuff back. And will the middle schoolers still be sectioned off by classes? I don't think we're moving teachers around. So how the middle school teachers were arranged last year, they will be arranged the same way, I'm pretty sure. What happens if a child is pulled out for a positive test? Oh, this is a great question. So if a whole class is out, then the class just switches over to remote. But if just this is something that we're actually trying to brainstorm as a county to deal with, and we're also we're trying to kind of problem solve this with the Beacon Teachers Association as well. I am worried about like a child having to be out for some amount of time because we don't have that remote apparatus like we did last year that a child can just slide into. So we're working on that. Like we're starting to talk about that. So that is a thing. That's a great question. Again, that question was about an individual child has to quarantine. How are we keeping up with them? And that it's trickier this year, but we're thinking about it and working on it. So I'm getting my, if this were a game show, I'm getting some, what is it? Phone a friend. I'm getting some texts from people. So elementary drop off can begin at 8:40. Again, for the third time, embarrassed that I forgot that as an elementary parent. Will there be PTO events in schools? I think definitely a possibility. We just need to kind of talk about making sure making sure protocols are in place and making sure there's just not a really packed crowd in one place. Is there still free lunch and breakfast? Yes. That's from the federal government, and just shout out to Karen Pagano and her team. They've done such a great job with all of that. But yes, free lunch and breakfast is still continuing. Any news about principal searches? We'll be sharing with the community next week where we are with that. Someone just logged on wondering when the start date. Oh boy, am I going to forget this? It's Wednesday after Labor Day. I think that's September 8th. What option do parents have if they don't feel safe? I totally understand that question, and we are trying to work on a potential remote option for students with a medical condition, but we are, like I said, our overarching emphasis is on in-person, as it is everywhere. Elementary class sizes being capped. They're not being capped, but they are small. I'm really proud of that. When does the portal open? I'm not sure. I might get a text from a friend who tells me the answer to that, but if not, we will get that out. Will classrooms be sanitized regularly? Yes, every night. Quarantining, another question about quarantining. We're going to get back to you just with all those specifics about quarantining because just because the county's kind of working on that. Can we do field trips this year? I would love to do field trips. I've not mentioned my son the entire night, but just quickly, I think he reminds me every once in a while that he hasn't been on a field trip in like quite a long time. And so we'd love to get field trips going again in a safe way. Someone's asking about they were remote for the entire year. How can they get a tour set up at their school? Contact the school office to work on that. And we would love to give folks tours who have never been in the building before, especially like those 7th, 10th grade, if they were all remote last year. And someone's just posting what was in the education department stuff. So I will take a look at that and get back to people. That was about sports. I apologize. I wasn't able to fully read that before tonight. All right. I finished all the questions. We had 98 questions or comments. I think I got through all of them. Sorry if that was like kind of a speed round, but I am going to sign off and thanks for being here. I managed to end before the Field of Dreams, Chicago White Sox, New York Yankees game. It starts in a few minutes. So gonna get home and watch a second or two of that. But thank you for being here. I think we recorded this and we'll post it online, and we will keep working through this process and keep communicating. Have a good night. See you later. Thanks for being here.